Welcome to another deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at something called Time of Reckoning,
Yeah.
but not in the way that you might expect.
Okay.
So our source material is a single issue of Creative Nation magazine.
Right.
And I think it was founded in 2020 by,
I think Zobam.
yeah, and it showcases creatives and their work.
Yep.
And it has this really, really cool African perspective.
Yes, and this is a very special issue of this magazine
Yeah.
because the entire thing is dedicated to the idea of
Wow.
time of reckoning. And they spell it out kind of strangely like this,
Okay.
with the like the lines above the letters.
Yeah.
It's got the Timi Reckoning.
Okay.
And then they define it, and the definition is really interesting. Judgments dawn, the shaping of our final hours, where Earth's shadows lengthen, the fates of souls are sealed, and time bows to eternity's decree.
Oh, my goodness.
So we're not messing around here.
Yeah, no kidding.
But what's really interesting is how they approach this concept.
Yeah.
It's not all doom and gloom and, fire and brimstone.
Yeah. Right.
They're looking at how things like technological advancement and social change and even spiritual reckoning are all kind of playing a part in this.
Yeah, that's what I thought was so cool about it, is it wasn't just like, the world's gonna end kind of a thing.
Right.
It was more nuanced than that.
Yeah, definitely. And they explore a lot of different facets of that.
Yeah.
For example, they talk about the unbroken seals from the book of Revelation.
Okay.
Now, before you think we've gone full apocalypse here, it's not like that.
Right.
But they are drawing these really interesting parallels between those seals and the challenges that we're facing in the world today.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Like the first seal, for instance.
Right.
A lot of people interpret that as like, conquest.
Yeah.
And they kind of tied it to like that pursuit of power that we see all over the globe.
Oh, yeah, the relentless pursuit of power.
Exactly.
Yeah, whether it's, on the world stage or in our personal lives or whatever it might be, it's this constant drive for power.
Yeah. And then they go on to talk about the second seal,
Oh, right, the red horse, right.
which represents war.
Oh, gosh. And we don't have to look too far to see how that's manifesting in the world today.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, there's so many conflicts happening right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense.
It's a little unsettling, right?
Yeah.
But then they also explore how traditional African values like Ubuntu, which
I
is
love that concept.
that interconnectedness, like we're all in this together.
It's like that, that African proverb, I am because we are.
Exactly. And they tie that to themes of accountability and responsibility.
Oh, that's so interesting because it's like saying you're not just responsible for yourself, you're responsible for the community
Right.
and for the world around you.
Exactly.
Right.
So throughout this deep dive, we're going to be looking at a lot of the insights from this issue.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into it.
Me too. We'll explore how technology is both fueling creativity, but also bringing up ethical questions.
Right, because it's like a double-edged sword. It can be used for good or for bad.
And then we'll look at what they call an education revolution.
Ooh, I'm interested in that.
Me too. It sounds kind of intense.
Yeah, what do they mean by that?
I think they're talking about like really prioritizing creativity and critical thinking in our education system.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we definitely need more of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're not just talking about tweaking the system, they're talking about like a major overhaul.
Yeah, it sounds pretty radical.
That's exciting, though.
Yeah.
It's like a call to action.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we'll even be talking about the world of art
Yeah.
and how art reflects like the spiritual and social climate of our time.
Yeah, like how art kind of mirrors what's going on in the world.
Exactly. It's like a reflection of our collective consciousness.
Yeah, so by the end of this, you should have like a way better understanding of what this whole time of reckoning thing might mean.
Hopeful.
But also, you'll be challenged to think about your own role in it.
Right. Like what choices are you going to
Yeah, what actions are you going to take?
What impact do you want to have on the world?
Exactly, because it's not just about like learning about this stuff.
Right.
It's about actually doing something with it.
Taking action.
Yeah. So buckle up.
Let's dive in.
Okay, first up, let's talk about this term they use, technological symbiosis.
Okay.
And it's all about how technology and creativity are like feeding off each other.
Yeah, they're like intertwined.
Yeah, in this time of reckoning.
And they make the point that this relationship is not new at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they actually argue that technology has always played a role in driving those creative revolutions.
Interesting.
Yeah, like think about the printing press.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly, knowledge was accessible to like the masses,
Right.
which led to like this flourishing of new ideas and artistic expressions.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
So it's like a catalyst. And
exactly.
then there's the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, yeah, all those new tools and materials.
Right.
It allowed artists and inventors to like push the boundaries of what was possible.
Yeah, it's like each new technology opens up a whole new world of creativity.
It's like a new set of tools to play with.
Exactly.
And today we're seeing that play out again with the digital revolution.
Yeah.
I mean, think about all the tools that we have at our fingertips, like digital art software
Right.
and music production programs. And then you've got social media platforms where anyone can share their work with the world.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
It's really democratizing creativity.
On a scale we've never seen before.
Totally. And the magazine highlights some inspiring examples of this, particularly from the African context.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they talk about filmmakers like Genevieve Naji and Kunle Afolayan,
Okay.
who are using film to tell powerful stories about the African experience.
Yeah, and they're gaining global recognition,
Exactly.
which is amazing.
It's so cool to see.
Yeah.
And it's not just in the arts.
Okay.
They also talk about these tech hubs like Andela and Flutterwave,
Okay.
which are not only solving like local problems, but they're also positioning Africa as this major player in the global tech industry.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's like they're using technology to fuel creativity and innovation.
And then even economic growth.
Wow. So this is really technological symbiosis in action.
It is.
But here's the thing.
There's always a catch, right?
Right. The magazine doesn't shy away from like the potential downsides
Well, of course.
of this technological dependence.
Right.
They argue that an over-reliance on digital tools could stifle originality
Yeah, I can see that.
and lead to kind of like a homogenization of like art and culture.
It's like anything else. There are trade-offs.
Right.
Technology can be an incredible tool, but it's important to be mindful of its limitations.
Right. And I think that's where the time of reckoning element comes in.
Oh, interesting.
You know, they're really pushing us to think critically about how technology is shaping our world.
Right. Not just our creative output, but our entire way of life.
Exactly. And I think that leads us perfectly into the next big theme, which is the need for an education revolution.
Sounds intense.
Yeah, they're not talking about just like tweaking the system. They're talking about a complete overhaul, like a radical shift in how we approach education.
Okay, so what do they propose?
Well, one of the most powerful stories in this issue is about this Zulu teacher named Simangaliso.
Simangaliso, okay.
And I think his name actually means miracle in Zulu.
Oh, wow, how fitting.
Right, because what he did was amazing.
Okay, tell me more.
He completely transformed his classroom.
Okay.
He moved away from like traditional lectures and rote learning, and he embraced project-based learning.
Oh, wow, so the kids are actually like learning by doing.
Yeah, and they're like exploring their own passion.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And solving real-world problems.
That's awesome.
So, for example, they talk about how he had his students create a sustainable garden.
Oh, cool.
And it combines science and art and environmental studies.
Wow, that's like a perfect example of project-based learning.
Yeah, and what I think is so inspiring is he wasn't like some privileged teacher with all the resources in the world.
Right.
He was in a rural village.
Wow.
But he was determined to make a difference.
That's so inspiring.
Yeah, so he took professional development courses, and he really embraced this growth mindset, and he created a space where his students could just thrive.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so this is a perfect example of what they're calling for, an education revolution.
Okay.
Which prioritizes creativity, critical thinking, problem solving.
Those are the skills we need for the 21st century.
Exactly, especially in this time of reckoning.
For sure.
They also talk about STEAM education.
Oh, yeah.
Which is integrating the arts into STEM subjects.
I love that.
Me too.
It's so important.
And they highlight the Blue School in New York City, where they've like fully embraced this approach.
That's cool.
And it's showing that it fosters a more holistic understanding of both the arts and the sciences.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so the takeaway here is we can't keep doing things the way we've always done them.
Right. We need to be willing to experiment, to think outside the box.
And to really empower the next generation.
To thrive in this rapidly changing world.
Exactly. And speaking of thriving, the magazine takes a really interesting turn when they start talking about art.
Oh, okay.
They have this whole section dedicated to the idea of Yahweh's canvas of time.
Ooh, that sounds deep.
Right. So basically, it's exploring how art reflects both the spiritual and social climate of different eras.
Oh, wow. That is profound.
Yeah, and this is where I think their analysis gets really interesting.
Okay.
They point to these historical art movements, like the Renaissance,
Okay.
with its focus on humanism and reconnection to the divine,
Right.
and then the Baroque period,
Okay.
with its grandeur and opulence.
Yeah.
That mirrored the religious fervor of the time.
It's like looking back through time and seeing how art mirrored the spiritual landscape of those eras.
Exactly. And they even mention specific artists in their works,
Okay, like who?
like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci,
Oh, yeah.
who echoed biblical themes in their masterpieces.
Right.
And then you have artists like Caravaggio and Bernini,
Okay.
who used their art to evoke awe and devotion to God.
Wow, it's amazing how art can do that.
Yeah, and then they bring it all the way to the present.
Oh, cool.
And they look at contemporary artists like Kehinde Wiley and Ella Natsui.
Oh, I like them.
Yeah, me too. And they're grappling with themes of identity and race and social justice in their work.
Yeah, their work is so powerful.
It
It
is.
really makes you think.
And it makes you wonder, like, what stories will artists be telling 50 years from now?
Right. What will art look like in the future?
Exactly. And how will it reflect the events that are shaping our world today?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So they're really making us think about the future of art
Yeah.
and how it connects to this time of reckoning.
Okay, so brace yourself because this is where things get really intense.
Oh, boy.
The magazine dives headfirst into the book of Revelation,
Okay.
and they don't hold back. They focus on the unbroken seals.
Right. Those prophetic symbols of God's judgment.
Right, and they offer this really bold interpretation of it, calling it a revelation of our times.
So they're saying these prophecies aren't just about some distant future event.
Right.
They're happening right now,
Exactly.
unfolding before our very eyes.
And they don't just skim the surface.
No, they go deep.
They break down each of the first 6 seals,
Okay.
drawing these thought-provoking connections to modern-day issues.
Give me an example.
Okay, so take the first seal, the white horse,
Okay.
which is often associated with conquest.
Right.
And they connect that to the global power struggles
Oh, yeah.
that we see playing out on the world stage.
Whether it's through military might or economic dominance
Yeah.
or even technological advancement.
It's like a constant race for control.
It's like everyone wants to be on top.
Yeah, and then there's the second seal, the red horse.
Oh, yeah, which represents war and bloodshed.
Sadly, we don't have to look very far to see how that's manifesting in our world.
Yeah, there's so much conflict happening right now.
And the violence seems relentless.
It's heartbreaking,
And then there's the third seal, the black horse.
which symbolizes famine and economic instability.
Think about the rising inflation, the food shortages, the growing gap between the rich and the poor.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of the inequalities in our world.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, the fourth seal, the pale horse.
That one represents death and destruction,
And that might seem obvious,
right? Because death is a natural part of life.
but they're pushing us to think about how we're facing death on a larger scale.
Oh, I see, like through pandemics and natural disasters,
Yeah.
and even the threat of nuclear war.
Right.
It's like a different level of death,
And then there's the fifth, sealed souls under the altar.
which represents the cry for justice from those who have been persecuted,
Think about all the marginalized communities, the oppressed individuals,
the people who are suffering.
and crying out for justice.
Yeah, it's a call to pay attention to their pain and to fight for a more just and equitable world. And finally, the sixth seal, the great earthquake.
Which represents upheaval and societal change.
Now, this one's interesting because it can be interpreted in so many ways.
Right.
Some people connect it to like political and social movements.
The ones sweeping the globe right now?
Yeah, or it could be like a more fundamental shift in our values and beliefs.
A change in consciousness.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But what about the seventh seal?
Ah, yes. The one about silence in heaven.
That's right. It's often seen as like a pause before the final judgment.
A moment of reflection.
Yeah, and the magazine interprets it as a call to reflect and take stock of where we are and where we're headed,
It's like a reminder that God is ultimately in control.
even amidst all the chaos and uncertainty.
So this whole section on the unbroken seals is pretty heavy stuff,
Yeah.
but it's also really thought-provoking.
It is.
It's not about scaring us, but about challenging us to see the world through a different lens.
To connect these ancient prophecies to our present reality.
Yeah.
And to think about the choices we're making as individuals and as a global community.
Exactly, and it's a perfect transition into the next theme, Echoes of Reckoning,
Okay.
which is all about accountability.
Oh, interesting.
So the magazine uses this really cool metaphor of a symphony,
Oh, I love that.
right, to describe how personal and institutional accountability
Okay.
come together to create a harmonious society.
I love that analogy.
It's so good.
It's like each individual note, each action we take contributes to the overall sound.
Yeah, and when we're all playing in harmony,
It's beautiful.
but when even one instrument is out of
It
tune.
can throw off the whole orchestra.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they start by emphasizing the importance of personal accountability,
Okay.
like the impact of our actions on others and the need to live with integrity and intentionality.
It's about recognizing that we're not isolated individuals.
Right. Our choices ripple outward and affect those around us.
And they give this beautiful example from Kenyan villages,
Okay.
talking about the concept of Ubuntu, which basically means I am because we are.
Yeah.
It's this profound understanding of our interconnectedness.
And the importance of being accountable to one another.
It's a beautiful concept.
It is.
And then they transition to institutional accountability,
Right.
focusing on governments, corporations, and organizations.
And they highlight some examples like Ghana's efforts to combat corruption
Oh,
through these digital transparency platforms,
wow.
and Rwanda's commitment to clean governance.
That's great.
These are really good examples of how institutions can build trust
And ensure that those in power are held accountable.
for their actions.
Right. It's about creating systems that promote transparency, ethical behavior.
Yeah, and a commitment to serving the common good.
Exactly.
But what I find really interesting is how they tie accountability to the digital age.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Because technology can be a double-edged sword when it comes to accountability.
Right.
On the one hand, it can be used to expose wrongdoing.
Like with those transparency platforms in Ghana.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it can be used to manipulate information, spread misinformation, and even undermine democratic processes.
It's like a constant tension.
It is.
And it's up to us to make sure that technology is used in a way that promotes accountability.
Rather than eroding it.
And we can't forget about the role of artists in all of this.
Oh, yeah. Artists have such a powerful voice.
They can use it to hold society accountable.
To challenge norms and inspire change.
And they mention William Kentridge,
Okay.
the visual artist whose work explores the complex history of South Africa.
His work is so powerful.
It is.
It's a reminder that artists have always been at the forefront of social commentary.
Using their creativity to shine a light on injustice.
And to push for a better world.
So to close out this part of our deep dive, the magazine features this really moving poem called Whispers of the Reckoning.
Oh, I remember that one.
It's so good.
It's one of those pieces that stays with you
It does.
long after you finish reading it.
And it speaks to like the uncertainty and turbulence of our time, but also to like the unwavering presence of God amidst it all.
It's a message of hope and comfort.
It is.
A reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's a light that guides us.
And that's a powerful note to end on as we move into part 2 of our deep dive.
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Welcome back to our deep dive into this time of reckoning.
Yeah.
As we continue to kind of unpack this issue of Creative Nation magazine.
It's really thought-provoking stuff.
It is, and I keep thinking about how they weave all these like different elements together. Like
Yeah.
you have these ancient prophecies.
Yeah?
And then modern technology, and somehow it all fits under this umbrella of time of reckoning.
And they're not just drawing these random connections, like you said.
Yeah.
They're making these really insightful points
Yeah.
about how technology is shaping our world and our relationships.
And even our spiritual lives.
It's really fascinating.
And it's not all doom and gloom either.
No, they also talk about the incredible potential of technology.
To empower individuals and connect communities and drive positive change.
Exactly. It's like this nuanced perspective.
That's what I really appreciate about this magazine.
Yeah.
It's not one-sided.
It's very balanced.
Speaking of nuance, I was really struck by how they explore the need for an education revolution.
Oh, yeah. That was a big one.
And it's clear that they're not just advocating for like small changes, you know?
No, they're calling for a complete paradigm shift
Exactly.
in how we approach education.
Like, remember that story about Simangaliso, the Zulu teacher?
Oh, yeah. The one who transformed his classroom.
That's a perfect example of what they're talking about.
Right. It's about moving away from rote learning and standardized testing.
And embracing creativity.
Yeah. Critical thinking.
Hands-on problem solving.
Like letting kids actually learn by doing.
Exactly. And what I think is so important is that they emphasize empowering teachers.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, give teachers the freedom and the resources to innovate
To express
and
their
create those learning experiences that are engaging and relevant and inspiring.
It's about fostering a love of learning,
Yes.
not just a fear of failing.
And I think that's especially important in this time of reckoning.
Definitely.
where we're facing so many complex challenges
Yeah.
that require innovative solutions.
We need creative problem solvers.
And this brings up a really interesting point, I think, that runs throughout the magazine.
What's that?
This theme of storytelling
Oh, yeah.
as a powerful tool for understanding and navigating this time of reckoning,
I love that.
whether it's through film,
Music.
visual
Yeah.
art.
Even just the spoken word.
Stories have this incredible ability to connect us
And inspire us.
and help us make sense of the world around us.
Absolutely. And I think that's why this issue is so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not just presenting a bunch of dry facts or abstract concepts.
Right.
It's weaving those ideas into narratives
Yeah.
that bring the time of reckoning to life.
Like, take, for example, how they explore art as a reflection of Yahweh's canvas of time.
Oh, yeah. That was beautiful.
It's not just a catchy phrase.
No, it's this profound concept.
And they illustrate it through all these examples from art history,
Right.
showing how art has always served as a window into the spiritual and social climate of different eras,
Yeah, like they talk about artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci.
whose works reflected the religious fervor of the Renaissance.
Right. And then they bring it to the present.
Looking at contemporary artists
It's like Kehinde Wiley and El Anatsui.
who are grappling with themes of identity, race, and social justice.
Their work is so powerful.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, what stories will artists be telling 50 years from now?
Right. What will art look like in the future?
And how will it reflect the events that are shaping our world today?
It's such a great question.
Yeah,
They're making us think about the future of art
yeah.
and how it connects to this time of reckoning.
It's like art is a reflection of our times,
Exactly.
and it can help us understand ourselves and the world around us better.
Definitely. And I think what's so powerful about their approach to storytelling is that they're not just focusing on grand narratives or historical movements.
Right.
They're highlighting the stories of individuals
And we're making a difference.
like Simangaliso, the teacher,
Yeah.
or the filmmakers and tech entrepreneurs,
Right. It's a reminder that we all have a story to tell.
and that our individual actions can contribute to the larger narrative.
Of this time of reckoning.
And that brings us to a really important theme that runs throughout the magazine,
What's that?
the idea of personal agency.
Oh, yeah.
They're not just telling us to sit back and wait for the world to change.
Right.
They're empowering us to take action.
To use our unique talents and perspectives to make a positive impact.
And they highlight examples of people from all walks of life who are doing just that.
Like artists, activists, educators, entrepreneurs.
It's like they're saying, this is your time to step up, use your voice, make your mark on the world.
I love that. And I think this is where their focus on Africa really shines.
Oh, definitely.
They're showcasing the incredible creativity, innovation, and resilience that exists on the continent.
They're challenging those often negative and one-dimensional narratives that dominate Western media.
It's so refreshing to see.
They're profiling these amazing individuals who are challenging norms, pushing boundaries, and creating new possibilities.
It's like a reminder that Africa isn't just a place of poverty and struggle as it's often portrayed.
Right. It's a place of immense potential,
A source of solutions.
a wellspring of creativity and innovation,
And I think that's such an important message for the world to hear.
especially in this time of reckoning.
Right, we need to be open to new perspectives, to different ways of seeing and being in the world.
And Africa, with its rich history and diverse cultures and vibrant creative spirit, has so much to offer.
Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to this idea of spiritual reckoning.
Yeah.
Because it's a theme that kind of weaves its way through the entire magazine.
It's like a subtle undercurrent.
Right. A reminder that this time of reckoning isn't just about external events. It's also about an internal transformation,
A shift in consciousness.
a deepening of our spiritual understanding,
They draw a lot on Scripture,
especially the Book of Revelation.
but they also explore African spiritual traditions
Right, emphasizing the interconnectedness of all things.
and the importance of living in harmony with nature and with one another.
And they don't shy away from the idea of judgment.
But they also offer a message of hope and redemption.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
they're saying, yes, we're at a crossroads.
But it's not too late to change course,
Yeah.
to turn towards the light.
To choose a path of love and compassion,
That leads perfectly into the final section of the magazine.
where they explore the theme of repentance and renewal.
A call to examine our lives, our choices, and our impact on the world.
It's not about guilt or shame.
No, it's about taking responsibility for our actions and striving to live in alignment with our values,
Recognizing that we all have the capacity for both good and evil.
and choosing to act in ways that contribute to the well-being of ourselves, our communities, and our planet.
And they offer practical advice on how to cultivate a more mindful and compassionate way of being.
Yeah, drawing on wisdom traditions from around the world.
It's about slowing down, paying attention, connecting with our inner selves, and recognizing our interconnectedness with all of creation.
And ultimately, I think that's what makes this issue of Creative Nation so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not just a collection of interesting articles.
Right.
It's a call to action.
An invitation to participate in this unfolding story of the time of reckoning.
To use our creativity, our resilience, and our spiritual awareness to shape a more just, sustainable, and compassionate world.
I love that. And with that, we'll wrap up part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay.
In the final part, we'll delve deeper into that call to repentance and renewal
Okay.
and explore what it means to live a life of purpose and meaning
Sounds good.
in this time of profound change and uncertainty. Welcome back to the deep dive. As we wrap up our exploration of the time of reckoning through this incredible issue of Creative Nation magazine, I'm struck by how much ground we've covered.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. From unpacking ancient prophecies and their relevance to the digital age to exploring the power of art and storytelling to make sense of our world.
Yeah, this issue has really pushed us to think differently about the forces shaping our lives.
And what's been most impactful for me is how they've managed to weave this thread of hope throughout the entire narrative.
Yeah.
They're not shying away from the challenges we face, the social unrest, the climate crisis, the economic inequalities.
They acknowledge it all.
But they're also reminding us that we have the power to choose our response.
Right.
Like they're saying, yes, things are tough, but don't give up. Don't succumb to despair.
We have the tools we need.
Right? We have the creativity, the resilience, the ingenuity to navigate these challenges and create a better future.
It's a powerful message.
It is. One of the things that has really stuck with me is their emphasis on African perspectives.
Yeah.
Particularly those wisdom traditions like Ubuntu and Inkai.
Those concepts are so beautiful.
They emphasize interconnectedness and community and a deep respect for the natural world.
Which feels so relevant in our increasingly fragmented and individualistic world.
Right, like they're offering us an alternative way of being.
A roadmap for building a more just and sustainable future.
Yeah, one that's grounded in collaboration and compassion and a profound understanding of our interconnectedness with all living things.
I love that.
And I think that's what makes this time of reckoning so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
Right, and that our individual actions have a ripple effect on the world around us.
Exactly.
You know, the magazine challenges us to move beyond complacency.
To embrace a more purposeful and ethical way of life.
And it's not about being perfect or preaching from a soapbox.
No, it's about striving to live in alignment with our values.
To make choices that contribute to the well-being of ourselves, our communities, and our planet.
You remember that powerful call to repentance and renewal.
That was a big one.
It really resonated with me.
It's not about guilt or shame.
No, it's about taking responsibility for our actions.
And making a conscious effort to do better, to be better.
And it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
We're all works in progress, constantly learning and evolving.
But the key is to keep moving forward.
To keep striving to make a positive impact, no matter how small.
Now, as we reach the end of this deep dive, I can't help but think back to that thought-provoking question the magazine posed.
Which one?
In this time of profound change and uncertainty, what role will you choose to play?
That's a question we should all be asking ourselves.
Will we be passive observers swept along by the currents of change?
Or will we be active participants using our unique talents and perspectives to shape the future we want to see?
And remember, it doesn't have to be some grand, heroic gesture.
Right.
It can be something as simple as choosing to be kind to a stranger.
Or speaking up against injustice.
Or making a conscious effort to reduce our environmental footprint.
Every act of courage, creativity, and compassion, no matter how small, contributes to the collective effort to create a more just, sustainable, and harmonious world.
This deep dive has been a powerful reminder that we all have a role to play in this time of reckoning.
Let the ideas and stories we've explored spark your imagination, ignite your passion, and guide your actions.
Remember, this is our time.
The choices we make today will shape the world of tomorrow.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to make a difference. Thank you for joining us on the deep dive.